Good afternoon, Commission members. I'm Tony Winnie. I'm your Assistant City Manager and also the Project Manager from the staff side on the Case Park Master Plan process. So thank you for inviting us here today to share the different plan options with you. We have representatives from the Schmidt Design Group, which is a design group that we hired last year to work with us on this project. But before I introduce Glenn Schmidt with the design group, I wanted to give a little bit of background on this project and how we got here today. So the master plan process actually began back in 2019. And at that time, it was smaller in scope. And what we were hoping to achieve at that time is really looking at some of the deferred maintenance in the park. As you know, if you visit the park regularly, the restrooms are in need of remodeling. The playground equipment is outdated and also needs to be addressed. The irrigation systems and also the turf areas also need some maintenance as well. And so the project started out at that time really looking at where we could make improvements to the existing park. However, in 2020, as you know, something occurred which sort of changed the nature of the conversation, which was COVID. So as you remember, during that period of time, many residents then started using our parks much more often than they had previously in order to get outdoors and get exercise and still have space from others around them. And so after that period of use, we heard quite a bit of feedback from the community in terms of, hey, let's take a closer look at this park and really create a larger vision for what it might be and what we could do with this park in the future. And so the vision for the park grew in scope and really came to be a master planning process so that we could create a vision for the long-term use of the park. And along those lines, we reached out and tried to find a design firm that really sort of recognized the values of Coronado and had a very good track record here in the San Diego region developing parks that met the needs of the communities that they serve. And so we found the Schmidt Design Group. They've done prior work here in the Coronado community previously with the Discovery Bridge of Coronado on the Strand. They did that park planning project in addition to a number of notable park projects around San Diego County, one of which I believe some folks in the community had toured, which is the Sabita project, which is in Mission Valley. But they can speak a little bit more to some of their other project experience around town. But we're really, it's been a fantastic experience working with them. And if you've had the opportunity to attend any of the design workshops and other community engagement events that we've had with the community, you can see the caliber of their product has been fantastic. And I particularly enjoyed working with them as well. So they're going to share their work product with you in just a moment. And also wanted to just talk a little bit about public engagement on this project. One of the things that City Council specifically requested is that we conduct a very robust public engagement process for this project, which we've done. We've had a series of community meetings which were well attended. And I know some folks in the audience today were also in attendance in a number of those. We've also solicited quite a bit of feedback online via the project website that we've developed for this project. And also a community survey that was also administered earlier this year. So really a historic outreach project in terms of community outreach for the City of Coronado, and one that we're very proud of. So with that, I want to introduce Glenn Schmidt with the Schmidt Design Group. He's going to review the different plans that they've developed and share his thoughts with you as well.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. I'm Glenn Schmidt for the Schmidt Design Group. I would like to recognize Chris Tiffany, our new principal, who just was promoted at our firm, and his hard work, and our staff as well. Thank you also to Tony and Tim and Tina for all their support. They've been wonderful to work with. This is the agenda. I want to go through our process and get you up to date on where we've been and our schedule, and then go through the findings, not only the plans, but the findings of what we've been hearing in our outreach. So we have three different phases that we set up. The discovery phase was really researching, listening, and then we got into the explore phase where we developed these 4 plans. And these 4 plans are really, you can think of them like a menu of ideas. We wanted to really show lots of different ways in which the park could be configured so that people get a maximum amount of options to be able to comment on. And we're going through a process of listening and getting feedback. That will culminate in a meeting with the city council in early December. And at that point, we're going to ask city council, after sharing what we've heard, to give us their recommendations on moving forward. And at that point, then we're going to work on one single preferred plan. Once we have one single preferred plan, we'll bring that out to the community again to get feedback to move toward an approval of that plan. So that's where we're at, and this is the process we've been to. We had a meeting, a first community meeting was on September 12th. Then we had a pop-up, we call it, on the site on September 27th. And then on October 5th, we had another pop-up event at the library in Coronado. And then HOA presentation was on October 19th to their board. And then today, we're here before you. The next meeting is on December 5th with the city council. At that point, we have a little line there. That's the point where we move to design that one single plan and move forward from there. We started off by having a number of meetings with stakeholders, had over a dozen meetings representing many different groups, and then we had tours, we met with people individually, had a lot of early discussion, and then we hired a survey firm, the True North Research, that put together a very statistically defensible survey that surveyed all of the city of Coronado. And they surveyed the village, the cays, the shores, in proportion to the population throughout. So it really represented fully the entire community, and asked a lot of questions. They're very professional the way they do this. They reached out to people online and by phone. They asked them a series of questions. Those questions were very neutral. And as they go to the next person, those questions will be scrambled in a different order. So very, very well documented results. And this is the kind of the key list of the elements that people wanted to see the most out at Case Park. And you can see actually shade trees came in number one. And then we had paths for walking and jogging, children's playground, dog park, view areas, and then multi-purpose sports and so forth. So we kind of use that as our guiding principle toward these four different schemes. And the different schemes, as you recall, was given to assignment to us from City Council to look at creating a scheme that kept 100% of the organized sport area. So that would be this dark green area. So that's 7.45 acres. So the first scheme was 100% of that. So that's what we call that, the 100% scheme. And then we had three other schemes, 75%, 50%, and 25% of the organized sport area. So that was kind of the big idea of the four different schemes. So this is representing those different acreages going from 7.45 down to 1.8 in terms of that amount of organized sports. That then led us to our four different plans, which we illustrated in a lot of detail to give people, again, the opportunity to comment. And I'll kind of run through them really quickly if you aren't familiar. This is the 100% scheme. This 100% scheme maintains the same number of fields and open areas that is there now. And what we did on this scheme, because that was using up so much area, we thought of we were, by the way, given free rein from the city. Be as creative and crazy as you want, so come up with really unique ideas. One of our ideas for this scheme was, because we have so much area of field, could we narrow the road and add some park along Case Boulevard? That did not go over well. So I can tell you that folks, from what we heard, don't want to narrow the road. So this 100% scheme, if it was selected to do 100%, it's going to look different because the road will be wider. So if you take a look at the road, as I click to the next one, you can see that this then now shows the full width of Case Boulevard. Going back to the other one, you can see that we narrowed the street and put in roundabouts. So without that, of course, we narrowed down the area that we have for the park. In the 75% scheme, we have a reduced amount of organized sports and equivalent to 4 fields. Right now and I'm using the Coronado Soccer Club as kind of the baseline. It's used by rugby, by folks practicing everything from baseball to throwing frisbees to flying kites. So we're just using that as kind of our standard so that we can be looking at each of them in the same way. So here we have the equivalent of 3 fields in our 75%. In all of them, we kept the dog park area on the south side of the park. And we have used different schemes for, I got some things. We have different schemes for how we organize the courts. So we were asked to maintain 4 tennis courts and at least 8 of pickleball. And you can see that this is the existing location of the existing tennis courts with 8 pickleball courts tucked behind. When we moved to the 75, we were experimenting. Well, what if we split those? What if we put pickleball on one side and tennis on the other and open up this view corridor? That caused a lot of concern with the neighbors, having the courts closer to them. So we heard that loud and clear. And I'll kind of go through all of our comments in just a minute. We have a large, a nice children's play area in all of them. In this one we had sand volleyball, which is not really well supported, and we included parking along this edge on all of them. This is the 50%. You can see now that we just have 2 areas for athletics, and then we have a much bigger area on the north side for more passive pathways, children's play area, exercise stations, those kind of things. So I can go back to any of these details. I'm kind of running through them quickly. And then this is our 25%, which just has 1 field and a lot more space for passive use. In all of these, we had each one we had a little different theme that inspired the forms within the park. And we asked people to comment on that, and I'll talk about what we heard there as well. This is our public meeting on the 12th. At the Cage Yacht Club. We're on site for our 2nd meeting, at the library for our 3rd meeting, and then the presentation before the HOA board. And then we're here tonight. Also, these boards have been here in the community center throughout this process. So what did we hear? Well, we received 132 emails and 104 website surveys. So if you go on the survey, or if you go on the website, you can take a little survey and fill out a questionnaire. And then we had a number of posted notes. This is an example at each of our public meetings. And we had 724 of those, along with a number of folks that actually sent us separate 8.5 by 11 forms that they filled out. So tremendous amount of feedback. I also recognize Kevin Riley, who put together a survey and sent to the Cage residents. He had 199 responses. Many of his responses were in line with what we were hearing, with a few differences. I'm going to go through kind of some of the main kind of big issues. First one, of course, is how much active field use should we put on Case Park? And basically, what I can say is the 100% and 75 kind of rose to the top, followed by the 25%. And then the 50% was kind of, I would say, it's number 4 in terms of popularity. It's a little bit deceptive in the way in which people voted. And I should say also, I want to recognize that there's a significant number of people that don't want anything to change. So I just want to recognize that as well. And some of those folks also were really pushing for the 100%, so the least amount of change. So that's a key decision we're going to ask City Council to give us direction on. Another one was the road. And as I mentioned, narrowing the road was not well received. We also made a couple other recommendations. One of them was to take out the current cul-de-sac that is right adjacent. Here's the firehouse here. So that's a pretty significant area. And we thought, in talking with your fire staff, they don't really need it. It's used really as kind of a drop-off area. So our thought was, what if we incorporate the drop-off into a reconfigured parking lot and pull back that cul-de-sac to give us more parkland? That was pretty well received overall. The other thing that we had recommended, that we got good advice from our civil engineer that's on the team, is that there's these narrow concrete islands in the median on Case Boulevard. And if we actually take that out and just stripe that, instead of having it be the concrete median, we can add parking along the area. These red lines is where currently there's no parking along the street. We can actually add that parking back onto the street just by taking out this little 3-foot strip of concrete, raised concrete in the median. That was kind of mixed. I would say a lot of people didn't quite understand it. We had kind of, I would say, less people opposed to that. So that's a possibility as we move forward. And that also then relates to parking. Parking was a big question. We had parking configuration in different ways and different schemes, including adding more parking internal. Globally, what we heard was people weren't really interested in more parking. They felt that the amount of parking shouldn't be changed. So moving forward, if that's what we were asked to do by City Council, we obviously will accomplish that. We might mix some more parking on the street with parking internal to accomplish that. Another recommendation we made on 2 of the schemes was, what if we could actually punch through here and access the Nature's Bridge to Discovery bike path way on the south side of the park. That was widely not well received. People were concerned about the security with letting people come into the park from the public out on that bike path. The other big issue was the dog park, of course. The dog park currently is outlined in red here. It measures 1.5 acres, and it's about 800 feet long. But I call it like a mixed-use dog park, because in reality, going out there, you see that a lot of people try and stay within that border, but there's no barriers. So dogs are free. Dogs don't necessarily know that they can't go, they're not supposed to go across the walkway. So the dog park actually, from a practical perspective, when the fields aren't being used, they really use kind of this whole area here. And so they're very used to having a lot of space. And we recognize that that's been great. Overall, though, in our survey, we asked that specific question about, should the dog park be enclosed in some way, either with what we call a natural barrier or a fence. And 83% of the respondents throughout Coronado suggested that we do create a barrier of some sort. Many people wanted a natural barrier. And so what we were suggesting is, like the example here, where we've got the fence in a shrub bed area. So the fence can be kind of camouflaged, so it doesn't look like it's a fenced-in area. It's more of a natural barrier, but it does provide that actual barrier, and we would have double gates for people to enter, so the dogs would remain in that dog park area now. That is actually kind of it, even though we are keeping the same 1.5 acres or larger, and in all the schemes we actually go a little larger, it in essence will feel smaller to them because they're used to using this area outside of that 1.5 acres. So recognize that people are concerned about that, but it's something that we thought was a pretty clear directive. We had courts in different positions on the different schemes. A lot of people really supported keeping the courts where they are. This is the existing tennis courts. That was another thing that we heard. And then what's interesting is that number one request when we had our survey was to add trees for shade. That was the number one request. But we have a lot of folks that live along the edge of the park that have ocean views, and they're very, very concerned about that. So we recognize that, and we've been looking at that issue and trying to quantify all the different views. So we've received photographs from inside people's homes. I visited one of the homes. We're taking shots with a drone, trying to determine where views are, and we're starting to map those out. We aren't quite complete with it, but I can give you kind of our progress in that we have a lot of blue water views to the north and the south. It's unclear if there's a really significant blue water views in the central core. You know, the thought was if there are areas that are not delicate in terms of blue water views, perhaps we could consolidate more trees in those areas. So that's what we're trying to determine. That is going to be a key question we're going to have for City Council as well, is how many trees do we want to include in the park. And the other idea we had was that we have the wall here along the west side is actually pretty low along the south side where the dog park area is. In fact, it's a little lower than code. So we would actually put a railing or something on it to make sure that it meets the guardrail height requirement of 42 inches. But as you go north, it jumps up to 8 feet, and it's not clear why that is. So what we looked at is, are there places where we could pull that, cut that wall down to open up more views to the ocean from the park and even from the neighbors, and enjoy that and balance that between where our courts are and where the open recreation is. In addition to that, what's interesting is that the wall turns like right here, and the area out west of the wall where it's 8 foot is actually city property. So our thought was that we could pull that wall down and actually extend some view decks into the area that's not being used by the city to expand our recreation area. So we did have in each of the schemes different configurations, different ideas for view decks to enjoy the sunset, enjoy the ocean view on that portion of the park. That was pretty well received. We also had ideas for like a kite hill or a sunset hill. That was also well received. Our ideas for making a more functional and interesting children's play area was well received. We also had fitness loops and fitness area that was well received. And then we did get comments about lighting, the idea of having security light on the pathways that is tastefully done is also something that people are interested in seeing. We had the idea of creating a design that allows for whatever it might be from, I don't know, farmers markets or little minor concerts or movies in the park or anything like that. That was pretty well received as well, that we would have that accommodated in the design. We had asked about public art, and we did have, especially in the last few weeks, a lot of support for making sure we have public art in the park, that it is done well and tastefully and thoughtfully. And then a couple things that were not well received. On the 25%, we had a pond that would be like a model boat pond that was not well received in general. We also showed a beach area that also had sand volleyball. That was not a big hit for folks either. And then there was a couple of things that weren't quite as obvious. We had, in two of the schemes, we included a backstop, but not the skinned infield that's out there. So none of the schemes had that skinned infield. We didn't hear a lot of either favorable or unfavorable. It was really kind of not conclusive there. And then the other thing that wasn't conclusive was that we had either remodeling the existing bathroom, making it bigger and more serviceable, or doing that plus adding another one, have two restrooms. That wasn't really conclusive. Kevin's survey came out that people are more in favor of the two restrooms, but it's not real clear to us. And then finally, people didn't comment a lot about shade structures, but shade structures also are going to potentially obscure some views. So our thought is that something that is going to be very thin profile might be posts with perhaps fabric that kind of also relates to the Ks and the sails and all the boats here. So something like that is very sensitive to the views is something we're thinking. And then in terms of the themes that we had, the two themes that kind of raised, elevated to the top of the list were islands, which was really focused on the Coronado Cays has this Caribbean character to it, and the white walls and the architecture. Could we bring like the hand-painted tiles and other elements like that into the park? That was very well received. Also, the idea of the natural and cultural history of the Strand and celebrating what's so wonderful about the Strand. Similar to what we did on the Nature's Bridge Discovery, kind of bringing some of that education into the park. So that's a very quick overview of where we've been. There's a lot of detail there, and happy to answer any questions more specifically. So with that, I'll open up for questions, whatever is your desire. Sure.
My name's Nellie Ritter. I have a long list. These are just comments. I don't really know how this is all going, so.
I think any clarifying questions on the presentation.
Oh.
I think after we hear from the public, then you can have, then you can deliberate and have your comments.
Okay, then I do have a question.
Okay.
I was curious, okay, all your talk, because we're in the exploring phase, I wanted to make sure that a few segments of the population were queried. And I don't know if you know this, but your parent participation, your times where you met with people were usually 4 to 6 or 5 to 7. And those are very heavily involved times for parents. And so I was a little bit concerned about whether enough parents had their recommendations accounted for. So I know you had a lot of people, but I don't know if that was accounted for. And also if any students were accounted for, or for kids, you know, that from high school, middle school, elementary, that might be something that is kind of important.
Yeah, that's a good question. When we're out on site, we were there when there was a lot of athletics going on, a lot of youth on the field, and some of the parents did come by. We didn't get tons of participation there. When we were at the library, the school had just let out, and so there were actually a fair number of students that came through where we were. I'm not going to lie, it was hard to engage them, but we tried. We did have a few young folks that participated, but didn't get a huge amount of student population. But we did try to approach the high school, but we had trouble with scheduling with them. So I don't know if that helps, but we did try to get youth feedback.
Do you have other questions about the presentation? Does anyone else?
Does anyone else have questions or clarification?
Yes, could you, the rank order of the options that people liked, could you put rank order those again and give us kind of about how many people thought they were acceptable?
So this is the 100%, and between the 100% and we didn't ask people to vote, right? And the way that we're getting feedback is fluid, and we have people that are coming. Some people came to every single one of our events and left messages and left notes. Other people wrote several times. So it's not really a statistical vote. But we did ask people about what was positive or negative about each one of them. And then we tried to go through all the emails and all the comments and try and get a sense for the number of people that were generally in favor or not. So the 100% and the 75 were pretty darn similar in terms of the support, I think for different reasons. So this is the 100% and then the 75%. Those kind of rose to the top. The 50% seemed to get less positive feedback. And then the 25%, a bit more than the 50%, there's actually a few more people that really didn't like the 25%. So we don't really have a tally for you. It's just a general consensus is what we're looking at. We are going to publish everything. We're going to deduct the names and addresses, the emails and such, so you can see the kind of just the raw data without being anonymous. But we did record the post-it notes. We typed each one and categorized and logged it in. The written comments, we did the same. We have the emails from we have emails, and we also have the survey information that was from the city's website. So we will publish all that. We just kind of closed that public input on the 31st, a couple days ago. So we're still kind of trying to get that all organized so that we can publish it. But you will be able to wade through 1,000 comments if you like. Yeah.
Mr. Schmidt, thank you for this presentation. It's very helpful. I believe you alluded early to you're hoping to get a single preferred design of your 4, and then the ability to tweak that. I'm not sure that's the term you used, but could you explain how that stage of this design process would actually play out so that those that are in the audience and us commissioners might have a better sense of, well, if you did this to the 25% plan, that'd really make us happy. Or if we did this to the 75% plan, that would really be better. So could you unpack that a little bit, please? Thanks.
Certainly, the key question, as I mentioned to City Council, is the amount of recreation area open turf that we should include in the final scheme. And once we know that, then we know kind of what our options are. Of course, if it's suggested that we go with the 25%, we have more passive area to work with. With the 100%, we have quite a bit less. So that's for us, in terms of moving forward, that's a very key decision. Once we have that, then we'll go through and we have a sense, after talking with so many people, and honestly, we have read every single email that has come in. I know Tony has as well. So we have a pretty good sense of what we're hearing. I feel like we can, based on, I've been in business 41 years, we've done a lot of this, so I feel like we can consolidate that consensus into a single plan. What we'll do is we'll do something similar to what we have done with all the 4 plans, with similar kind of graphics and information for you, like these different schemes. And then we would narrow it down, and we'll do even more detailed design. So we would have something like this, but we'd also have like an on grade level simulation showing you the character of how it feels from the park itself. So we'll develop that, and from there, we're going to have, our first step, we'll have another public meeting where we'll do a similar kind of presentation, get feedback. From there, a lot of it depends on what we hear. The most streamlined would be that public meeting, and then we would go to the HOA for their comments, to Park and Rec, and to City Council. So we have those as the most streamlined, but we're flexible, and we'll see how it goes. We're hoping that we can hit a home run right away.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Andrew. We're not in yet.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Andrew Corley. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It helps out. I appreciate that. And to my fellow commissioners, thank you for your great questions. I have no more. Thank you.
I have a question about the lighting of the fields, and generally speaking, all the plans. Okay, the existing park, which is pretty empty, from just about any position in the park, you can see across the entire park. in all of the plans, we have many trees, obstacles, courts and stuff. And it appears that there is vertical lighting structures, is that right? Am I seeing that correctly?
We're showing that for one field, yes.
And is that, so how are the other facilities lit at night?
The walkways and all the areas where people will be would have security safety lighting so that you can see if someone's in the park. We'd want to have those be understated and delicately done. But we'd have security lighting throughout. And then there is, the scheme do propose ball field lighting on one of the fields.
And so the security lighting will be like around the tennis courts, on the walkways, all throughout the park, and that will be on all night long, correct?
Actually, I misspoke. We also have the court lighting, like what is existing. There's court lighting existing.
Okay,
So
so
that would still be there, sorry.
that will still be there, and that will only be used, as the courts are being used within the time frame of the park use. But I'm specifically talking about when, unlike the tennis courts or the pickleball courts or the basketball court, I'm specifically talking about the security lighting that will be on all the time. And I do have some concern about the large field lighting, the vertical poles that are up. Will that allow games late into the night?
That would be an operational question, perhaps for Tim. I would imagine there's going to be a certain time limit for those. Yeah, just to go back to the security lighting on the walkways, it's about 1/2 to 1 foot candle, which is very dim, but enough that you can see that someone's there and people can easily walk without tripping and such. It's not like it's going to be a blazing light. It'll be kind of understated. We can also use bollard lights that are low throughout the walkways and such. So that's kind of another step in the detailed design that we need to get to. But the other thing that we do is we try and incorporate as much view corridors, even though we're probably bringing in some shrubs and some different material. We do want to have visibility so that police can drive around the park and see into the park. We also have a loop walkway, not only for walking, but wide enough for police vehicles to actually drive around the park and observe what's going on. So it's called crime prevention through environmental design, CEPTED. So we're going to use those kind of techniques to try and make sure we maintain good visibility throughout.
Go to the park at night, please. You'll find that we don't need any more lighting. We don't need anything on the pathways. We have ambient lighting off the street lights and what comes in off the freeway. You don't need your cane to feel yourself around, okay? Please just do that so you're familiar with it. The other thing is, I feel sorry for the folks across the street right now. That is a daylight to dusk park, unless, as it will probably be tonight, the portable lighting from the soccer folks lights it up. It gives us peace down there, which brings up the question, are you looking at all the parks or building more parks in the main part of the city? Or are we supposed to take care of all of that with nighttime activities too? You're in for a battle if that's what's going on. Okay, that's just my comment. Let me get to that wall. I did 32 years with the sheriff's office. My last 5 years, I'm not too bright. I turned down a captain's pay to stay in the field. I was a lieutenant, and I took care of street narcotic level and gang suppression. Okay, and just for kicks, they let me start a 150 immediate call-out deputy sheriff's emergency response team to cover public disorder as well as natural disorder. I've lived in the Cays since 1996, 47 Blue Anchor. I'm interested in that too. I was also a survivor of 3 hurricanes. One in Galveston, Texas as a young kid while my dad was fighting in Korea. one in Houston when I was working for Gates Rubber, and as a sophomore, Cherry Point, North Carolina Marine Air Station, Havelock High School, we had a beauty come through there. If we have a hurricane come through,
You have 1 more minute, Bob.
your preparation for that hurricane is saving people any way you can do it. Hopefully the Navy can use some of the big stuff. We're gonna grab buses and everything else. So I did take a good look at that. A few years back, when soccer got started, we started having some accidents at the entryway. Those of us that remember there, they weren't the bad ones, thank God, but also with the bicycle traffic building up, those were the bad ones because the cars were pulling. Most of the accidents were the bicycles running into the cars rather than the cars hitting them. We went through a long procedure on that, or the city did, I wasn't part of that, of shortening those walls to the way it is now for greater visibility for people driving.
3 minutes, Bob, good. Please
And
wrap it up.
it did help very much. We're not having those accidents anymore. We do have good lighting on those roads, and as long as they are now, I think we're in good shape. If we shorten that or we take away that center divider, we've got a problem with the families of the soccer folks, especially crossing over. Most of them have a couple of kids, and I noticed on the way back from a funeral this last weekend
Bob,
that they're bringing their little pet dogs and stuff with them on leashes. They need to be able to get to the center and then go across.
Your 3 minutes are up. So,
Okay,
Thank you very much
all
for.
right.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin.
Hi.
I am a resident in the Cays, but I come to you tonight from a different point of view. I come as a commissioner. So I'm on 2 commissions. I'm on the Public Art Committee and I'm on the Mobility Commission. And when I come to these meetings, I feel like I'm speaking to a group of peers. So I have a confession to make. We, at the Mobility Commission, we had a presentation similar to this, extremely well done. And it was done by the Emerald Keepers. And it was about the free shuttle that we were supposed to get to the city. And it was about the pilot and what it was gonna look like. At the time, I was the only member on the Mobility Commission that lived in the Cays. And I'm an avid bike rider and the like. So I listened and I'm listening and I had to be very patient and I listened. And then it came time for us to vote or have a discussion at the end of the presentation. The problem with the presentation is at the time it was presented to us, it's since changed, but at the time it was presented to us, the free shuttle, the environmentally conscientious, amazing shuttle, the Cays wasn't gonna be a recipient. So it can't go to the Cays, it wasn't gonna go to the Cays, and the Cays wasn't gonna benefit from it. So from my seat on the commission, I spoke up kind of loudly about, this is not okay. I mean, the whole city's gonna benefit from this. We have to pay for it. It was very expensive. It will be very expensive. And the Cays residents are not gonna benefit from it. You need to vote no. And I can be very convincing. I used to be a school principal, so I actually made a few of my commissioners think about it. No, vote no. No, we don't, I mean, the whole city's not gonna benefit. It's not fair. Well, I am so glad that the rest of the commission outvoted me and they voted for it. And the reason they did is because it's what was good for the city, the whole city. And then eventually, the Emerald Keepers and the city revisited it, and now the Cays is gonna benefit from it. So if I was successful in convincing the rest of my peers that we shouldn't have a shuttle, we shouldn't have something that only the village benefits from, we wouldn't have had it at all.
Have about half a minute.
Thank you so much. So I ask you to think about that, and I ask you to think about it from the big picture. And I ask you also, as a previous special education teacher, to think about our disabled population. They are underrepresented, and they aren't going to the park for the reason that Glenn brought up, because the dogs, they have been jumped on. Matter of fact, at one of the meetings that you saw in a picture, we had two friends that are disabled and tried to go there and could not. So I ask you to think about that population too. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, thank you. First of all, my name is Lisa Brendan. I've lived in the Cays for about 27 years, as my parents have also lived in the Cays for over 35 years. First, I do want to say thank you. I really appreciate all the outreach that was done and the continued outreach. One question I had is, kind of to build on Jerry Waterlander's words, if they build it, will they come? Is there any plans for follow-up discussion when things are built and to see what's being used and what's not being used and maybe ongoing revision? So that's something I wanted to encourage the commission to think about. I also wanted to ask if the consideration was given to the bus that turns around for Silver Strand and the middle school. I know we asked the fire department, but I don't know if anybody checked with the schools about the bus turnaround there. So that's something I thought maybe should be considered. The bathrooms, I've asked it, actually even this morning, I asked a number of residents if they, at dog park this morning, because I am a dog park user, if we had considered something similar to Spreckles Park where they have the individual stalls and then you go out for the hand wash basin. I think one bathroom would probably be more than sufficient, especially when you consider what would have to be happening with sewer lines. The last thing I wanted to bring, well, two of the last things, irrigation. I know that was one of the main concerns from the get-go, and I'm in the dog park once or twice a day, and I see the wasted water, and I see the flooding, and I see that is continuing to be a problem. So I know one thing I want to just make sure is being addressed is the ongoing irrigation and the water usage. And then lastly, I noticed in my packet today that the private citizen, Kevin Riley, I think is his name, his survey was included in here. And I understand that there were about 200 responses, but I really feel that that survey that's a private citizen doing a survey. It's not being done by a group that was hired. And I don't know that you should really consider those results, because I do feel the questions were very skewed. And I shared that in my survey response as well. Thank you so much.
And I've lived in the Cays a long time now, and I've been involved happily with park creations for both the city of Coronado and for the San Diego Unified Port District. We have a magnificent Silver Strand environment. We share it with many people, as it should be. I'm here to make my statement, and I have written about this a number of times. I'm here to say that I feel very strongly that there needs to be change for this park. We need to have it more inclusive. We have senior citizens that don't go there. They're afraid. You know, we have the handicapped kids that Robin mentioned. They're afraid. We have small dog owners that never go there because they're afraid that their animals, you know, will be hurt or killed. So I think we have a wonderful opportunity now. I thank the city for having the wisdom and hiring the Schmidt design team, who is the best in my mind in San Diego. And as you can see, they have brilliant ideas, just inspired ideas. I hope that you will lend support so that we have more room for more of us to be able to go to the park and feel safe and feel comfortable. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Dan Hunting. I'm a Cays resident since 1988. Thank you for your service. I went to all of the Schmidt presentations and the presentation at the Cays HOA. most of the post-it notes were nays, were negative. The presentation at the library, there was attendance of perhaps at the most 25 citizens, and 75% were Case citizens. In other words, it's not a big priority here in the village, or for the village citizens, the Case Park. I'm an advocate for save our playing fields. I'm a soccer grandpa, and also Case Park, leave it as it is. I live at 10 Bahama Bend. The activity on the fields is fabulous. It's wonderful. Of course, the beautiful game of soccer, touch football, frisbee, t-ball, over the line, etc. There is no organized softball or baseball, and the activity on the infield and the backstop are pretty useless, even though I'm a prior Little League and high school baseball player. The kids are out there playing ball, but on the grass. About clutter. When they designed and developed the shell, they had no permanent seating. That area is a beautiful area with beautiful, clutter-free, where we can, 1,000 of us can go and do events, non-sedentary events, like yoga groups, etc. What I see is clutter paving over. We do have 13 concrete benches out there, and
about a minute left, Tom.
Anyway, save the playing fields and Case Park, leave it as it is. Thank you very much.
I'm Jim Valera. I live at 34 Admiralty Cross, and I've been going to the park for 35 years now. And I'm a big user of the dog park and the softball diamond. Just an opening comment. The beauty of the park itself is its flexibility. It's for use for many groups of Coronado residents. And you can see that if you go out at any time of day. You'll see many different groups of Coronado people doing various sports, playing, just sitting in various spots and enjoying the park. And I think the original park design of a minimalist approach, not locking in any particular park configuration, but leaving it open for many users and uses, was brilliant. My concern about the whole project is it's wonderfully done. My thinking is, however, that one option has been completely left out, and that is that no changes at all be made to the park, leave it as is, and make some minimal improvements that would enhance its usability. Bathrooms, for example, could be improved. But the basic configuration of the park and its uses are perfect as is. And I specifically want to mention the dog park. We had last year, or maybe it was 2 to 3 years ago now, I can't remember how long ago it was, but we collected signatures. We have today about 340 signatures on a petition to leave the dog park exactly as it is. And I'd like to encourage the Parks and Recreation Department to go back and look at that survey and those within that petition. The other thing is the softball diamond. Some of the configurations that are here, the softball diamond is an afterthought. There's no infield. It's not a complete diamond in any respect. So I'd like to look at the current baseball diamond the way it is, leave it as it is, and especially the infield, so that there's dimensions for playing. Thank you.
I'm a 30-year resident of the Cays, and I would like to suggest that in addition to the 4 elaborate proposals that you have before you on the screen, we had a fifth proposal, which is in line with the last two speakers' comments, to leave the park essentially as it is. This park is beautiful in its distinctive, in its openness. It's green grass that extends. We live in an increasingly densely populated community, soon to get even denser. Open space is at a premium. And crowding this park with what I referred to in my letter to you all, which I hope you got courtesy of the city clerk, as gigas or gugas, by which I'm referring to the lengthy list of amenities, it creates nothing but controversy over an issue which really should be quite simple, and that is, let's have an option 5 that says maintain the park essentially as it is and fix what needs to be fixed, but not that which is not broken. Beyond that, I would just advert briefly to the softball field and dog park. The users of the park, I think if you're there on a frequent basis, and I'm there daily because I do have a dog and go to the park, I see use of the softball, not to contradict Dan's comments, but the softball hardball field is used. It's a limited sort of scope because it doesn't have an outfield, but it's great for practice. And I am in a group of seniors who plays every Monday and every Thursday, except for today, at 4 o'clock. And we treasure that field, we treasure its use, and we see many examples of parents and kids, teenagers, up to college level people out there practicing, and the photos that I submitted with my correspondence to you this morning show examples of that. So please keep that in mind, and I hope you
About 30 seconds
recommend.
left.
What?
About a half minute left.
Okay. And on dog park, currently the dog park is 800 feet in length along the west wall of the park. That allows it to function as a dog run. Dogs run, that's what they love to do. And it's a joy to see that and be a part of that. I have a dog, and I think that we need to leave that configuration, not shrink it down into what essentially would become a big dog corral. So with that, I will say thank you, and thank you for working on this issue.
Thank you.
Tina Christensen. I've lived in Coronado since 1968 when I went to high school, moved back in 1990, lived all over this town. I will say this, the council's asking a great question and they've got a great designer. Don't throw that out. The council needs to hear from you before they dig up this field and replace all the grass. I understand the tennis courts also need structural fixing. They want to know if there's a layout that makes this into actual a community park. It's not now. It's an open sports field which accommodates dog uses, but not much else other than sports uses. There's no shade. If you look at that park over there today, there's no shade. You can't walk really around it or through it. There is really just an open field that's never been developed the way our other parks are. Even Tidelands Park, which is a port park, it's got almost 200 trees in it. This park designer's smart enough to figure out where to put trees so they don't block views, but can we please have some trees? There's some brilliant ideas here. I support the 75% because I think it allows enough room for the designer to give the people that live near here a place to use. We're going to be an aging population. If you think it's used a lot now by the people that live around here that are trying to use it during COVID, wait another 10 years. A master plan is about the next 50 years. Which of you believe that we have enough parking in Coronado right now? In 50 years, there's sheer genius here. Just restripe a curb and put in some intermediate parking lane for drop-off, pull the cul-de-sac out. Wow, we get a lot of more green space. Who would support that? A sunset viewing platform. Ask the designer to look into that. There is no place in Tidelands Park, or excuse me, this park, where you can see the sunset. You got an 8-foot high wall for most of it. We used to pull out lifeguard chairs on our driveway on Mardi Gras Lane so we could peek over the wall and see the sunset on the water. Come on, people, we can do this better. Coronado deserves better, the K's residents deserve better, and the designer is fully capable of designing a sunset viewing area that is secure, won't have people hopping over the wall, there's an elevation change there. I'd like to see more about that. The uses really...
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Yes. I guess I would say, please let the council know what your opinion is of a balanced community park. What design ideas do you see here you want them to explore further? The council's going to make a political decision on whether it's 75% or more. But give them your vision of a community park, please.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so what do K's residents think about K's Park? Well, only 60 K's residents were allowed to participate in the city's K's Park survey. The other 400 participants were not K's residents. Obviously, the views of K's residents deserve more consideration than that. I've done 2 surveys in the last couple of years where over 700 K's residents participated. I can't fool them all. Believe me, they're smart people. Hopefully you've seen that. But it's posted on the website for everybody to see. The key points are these. The priorities of K's residents for the park are: number 1, connections to nature and aesthetics; number 2, passive recreation; number 3, amenities; and number 4, active recreation. In short, the park has been completely taken over for active recreation, and especially Coronado Football Club. K's residents are happy to share, but they want some large portion of their park returned to their use. They want that portion to be a beautiful aesthetic centerpiece of the K's community, much as Spreckles Park serves as a beautiful aesthetic centerpiece in the village. They want it to be a community park because right now the only place for socializing in the K's is really the yacht club and the dog park. So if you don't have a boat or a dog, you want to go to the park. They want to walk in the park in the day and in the evening. They want the park to feature ocean views and trees. In the city survey, for all Coronadans, soccer didn't even make the top 25% of desired amenities. I know, thank you. Just above picnic areas. And yet, the entire focus of K's Park design has been all about soccer. The data clearly indicates that K's residents are sick of private soccer dominance in K's Park and want it cut back substantially. If forced to choose between 25, 50, 75, and 100%, the majority of K's residents choose 25% by a margin of over 3 to 1. And they are not happy with the layout of the 25% option, so it needs to be significantly reworked. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So do we have any comments or questions from the commissioners?
Just start. You all ready? Okay. Russ, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks everybody for the public comments, both written and here today, and for those that participated in the survey. I earlier commended the Schmidt Design Group, and I'd like to further commend the True North survey, which I believe accurately reflects all of Coronado residents, including those from the K's. My recommendation today would be, if we choose to go beyond a stamp of approval for the work that's been done, that might get a little dicey. I'm not sure if any of us are prepared to say I like 75% or I like 25%. So those are my opening comments. And that's all I'll say at this point. Thank you.
Are you ready? Let's do it. It's okay. Just start. Let's take a break.
Well, Tina, I think it was you who was asking us to give a vision of the park. And I find this very hard, personally, to, like you all say, to choose one option. I'm not prepared to do that either, but I am happy to give the vision. I think the two themes that you narrowed down, I personally like the beauty of the islands. It goes with what they've already started doing at the roundabout. Every village is named after, it just kind of makes sense. But I do like, I mean, I think if we could kind of come up with some things that we can all agree on. We can all agree on the sunset deck, I think. I think we can all agree to pull out the cul-de-sac if, you know, it seems like it's not necessary anymore, that you guys can work with what. Without that, I think, Schmidt, you've got a really good grasp of, you know, everything from views people need, and so I really feel like you can keep going where you're going. I think you've got a good grasp there. I do feel like, I know it's maybe just, well, let me back up a minute. I do think we need to address with the city council, have they addressed Tidelands Park and the uses there? So I do appreciate that Kevin Riley brought that up in saying what's going on there, because that is a huge park, and I don't know that it's got its best and highest use going right now. And if it can shoulder some of the things that we're trying to shoulder in this one open park that we have to deal with, then it can make our decisions a little bit easier, because we're trying to, utilize all the recreation areas that people need. I think it's important that even if only a certain amount of people use an infield, that it's important. Like, that's what a park is. So I have a little bit of an issue taking away an infield, unless we can say that, okay, Tidelands is available and can be utilized. Same with basketball. You cannot put a half-court basketball into a city of this size that doesn't have an outdoor court available 24 hours. You just can't. You have to have a full basketball court. I think it's really important the dog run not be a run and not a circle. I mean, I'm just kind of going over things that I feel are really important. Can I name which option? No, but I can't. I like, so that's just a start. I'll have more to say as you all speak.
Thank you. Again, I really appreciate the amount of effort that's been put in by the designers, but also by everyone in the community. Thank you for being here. It's important to us all, and I've appreciated getting a chance to hear everyone's position. Some of the things that I think are really important that I heard you touch on earlier were the sightline concerns with regard to trees. So I think canopying trees is a really big deal, but impinging on or eliminating anyone's blue water view is a real serious crisis in my mind. I haven't heard anyone, which amazes me, talk about the pickleball courts. I really like the design when they're off by the road and they're away from houses. I think that pickleball is a lovely, wonderful sport. I think it brings communities together, and it's a lovely, 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 loud activity. And so my position is to keep those courts away from the houses and find a way to magically not inhibit anyone's view. The same goes with the tennis courts. Lighting, yeah, right. We don't want to have light pollution, but we also want to have safety in that. I think it's really clear that we don't want a water feature. When I say we, this is what I understand. I believe everyone else has touched on the other items. I'm going to hand the mic on. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm a little slow, but it was my understanding when the city council started this, and I go back to the, let's see, May 16th meeting of the city council. The May 16th city council meeting where they discussed this plan. And it was my impression that there were 4 options with a 5th option, and that is to go into the park, fix the irrigation, fix the drainage, clean up some of the amenities, especially the restroom, and we could go from there. I still believe that would be the best option. And that would give us time. I mean, the city could do the job. They could fix the park, which desperately needs it. People that don't go there, they're continually, every week, the city services are out there fixing broken sprinkler lines, flooded areas. So hopefully we could start with repairing what we have and having a palette to start adding stuff that we need. I'm also a little bit bothered that we had an extensive survey and workshops of years taking up to this that culminated in the 2019 survey. At that time, some 60% of the people that participated in that pretty much wanted to leave the park the way it is. Well, then COVID came along and changed everything. And in my eyes, the usage of that park is just getting back to the way it was. School is in session. Soccer is coming. The soccer kids are playing there from Coronado every day. The parking, I don't see that as a problem. I drive past that park daily, and I'm in the dog park almost daily. And the parking, the existing parking lot is empty every morning. And the only time we have high pressure are in the big soccer tournaments. And even there, it's accommodated. I mean, right past this park, which now is included, down Mardi Gras Boulevard and the road into Coronado Case Boulevard, there's hundreds of more parking spaces. And an acquaintance that was at the library meeting suggested, well, on these overflow days, if it is a problem, the state park across the street contracts with the hotel for overflow parking. You know, we could do that for a day or two. If I was going to make a recommendation to council, I'd say, let's go ahead with the engineering and get the basics fixed and revisit this. So I'm not sure where that leaves us or where we go from here. Are there any other commissioners that want to comment?
No, go ahead, you haven't spoken.
Yeah, and I just have a question. Yeah.
But based on all these comments and all the things you're getting back from the Post-it notes and everything, it seems to me that you could put something together that reflects what people have talked about. Right now, we're looking at something that doesn't really show where, let's say, a sunset look would be. It doesn't show, it doesn't show where that an extra piece of land that's out there is going to get used. I'd like to see another design that reflects these concerns, or the things like senior citizens and the the ability of disabled persons to use the land. And, I like this sunset, the sunset view bench, that's really important, and the changing of the walls a little bit. But those are not all they're not in every one of those designs, correct?
They're in each of the designs.
All that stuff is?
Yeah. So if you go online, you can zoom in, or just go to the board there, and they're articulated in each of the designs, and all the designs will be all Americans with Disabilities Act code. We're going to provide complete accessibility throughout the park.
So you don't perceive making any changes, like a fifth design based upon the feedback that you've been getting?
Well, we're going to go to one, so that would be, I guess, the fifth. Yeah. We're going to
Wait,
consolidate into one design
Okay.
based on our feedback.
So you're not just going to pick one of these, you're going to take the feedback and you create a
So-
consolidated design?
Yeah, this is a menu of ideas.
Okay.
And so we're going to borrow ideas from each to go to that more preferred option. And we have heard specifically things that people like. That is not on all of those things they like are not on one scheme. So we're going to pull off of them like a menu, you see.
Good.
Right? So
Good.
that'll be our plan. The next
Good,
step.
thank you.
Yeah. No,
Okay, these are notes that I made today when I was working. I was surprised in all four of your options that there weren't, and maybe this is the next phase, so correct me if that's the case. But when I was going through your presentation and looked at the other parks you all have done, there were some more innovative ideas that I didn't witness in the presentations here. And maybe that's because we're not at the next phase where we can more model it, but I'm gonna share some of the things that I noticed that you did in other parts. So, and I feel like the people, you not having these in the presentation doesn't allow people to envision what this park could look like. So, pump track, parkour area, children's play garden, community garden, and ping pong. And I put picnic shelters, but you have those. And I liked something that you wrote on your presentation. It said, children's play area is dynamic and stimulating. I am not seeing anything dynamic and stimulating in these in what we have here, just because it's just play equipment, you just get on it. But what I saw at other parks that you've done, it looked like, wow, that looks stimulating and dynamic. And that gets me excited about what the potential of the park could be, and makes me, want to look at, something different. These aren't quite it for me, but again, I know you're working with this sort of four options that are kind of a little difficult to work with.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. You're right, that when we go to the next level, we'll get into more detail. If you zoom in, we have actually designed a lot of those features that you're interested in. We have a game area with ping pong and other activities. The play areas, we have kind of placeholders, because we want to have that final scheme of where that's going to be and how that's going to be nestled into the site. So you're right, we haven't really gone into tons of detail in the playground, but we did get a lot of feedback that people would like some natural play features. And that's something that we've done a lot of our parks, which we are very happy to do. There's no room for a pump track unless you take away something. So if you want to take away pickleball, we can put in a pump track. But we don't have that. We don't have the room here, unfortunately. And there's something else you mentioned. Not sure I caught it all. But
Community garden.
community garden. We did think about that, and it does take a fair amount of area. We didn't get a lot of support. We don't have that. If that was something that people would like, we can. It would have to be in a spot that's sheltered from the salt air, because it's pretty severe condition for growing out there unless it's sheltered. So we could certainly add that if that's an important amenity that people would like. And I think, was that in the survey, Chris?
Didn't have specifically community gardens,
Yeah, I think we did have community gardens in the survey.
not vegetable gardens.
Oh, not, we just say gardens.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's different to say vegetable garden or community garden so people
Yeah.
know. Otherwise, they don't know it's an option to have, like, I didn't know you could have a parkour area or, you know.
Yeah, that's another good one, interesting in parkour. That's kind of a teenager-related activity. And with the configurations of our playgrounds that we're showing now, we would have room for a feature or two as well. So that's a good thought.
What are you feeling like you're gonna cook up next? What are you feeling like you're gonna cook up next?
Well, it depends on what direction we're given by council. So I would say that it doesn't sound like we're getting tons of support for the 50% one. We're getting support for the 100 and the 80, or the 75, but it's a little deceptive that the 100 right now shows the road being narrowed. And once you take that away, which we know folks don't want, there's a lot less room there. So it seems to me that we're hearing a fair amount of support for 75 that maintains the athletic activity, but gives us some room to do some interesting things, passive. But there is a lot of folks that would like it to be more passive. So, and that really is a decision that needs to come from someone that is above me, for sure. So that's why we're going to the city council and say, do you want to accommodate more athletics or less here at Case Park? If you want to accommodate less athletics, then we won't have a big area of just open grass. We'll have other opportunities for passive recreation. So until we get that direction, it's hard for me to say, right? That's so pivotal.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're taking it all in, and we're grateful. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're all good.
And I have,
Put the microphone in your mouth.
another comment. Do you have guidance in any way from council on the budget for the projects?
We have not been asked to accommodate a particular budget, no.
So at this point in time, it's kind of a conservative town, and when you talk about taking tennis courts out and rebuilding them, that's very expensive. That's tens of millions of dollars, and that sort of leaves us here with the park is still in need of repair. So I would be inclined to, if we need to make a recommendation to council, is perhaps we could get started with the groundwork. And then it seems like we're a bit premature on picking the options. And perhaps start another process. Now, maybe Tim could enlighten me about where we go from here.
So the purpose of this agenda item is to review and have some discussion around this Case Park Master Plan process and what has been given to Glenn Schmidt and his team from council is to create these 4 options. And so today this is them presenting the menu items and some of the community feedback, and for you guys to kind of add some additional feedback and comments, which you guys have already done. But there's no recommendation, there's no action taken from this. It's just providing your input into this iterative process and adding your comments and suggestions into what items you'd like to see on the menu going forward to council.
So we don't have to choose one of these options?
Correct. If you want to provide input on what your preference is, that's one of the menu items up there is the options here. But ultimately, it's gathering more input for their team to take to council.
Formal guidance.
Maybe I could also make some specific comments about the courts. The city did recently repair them and add new surfacing, but they found that there were some structural issues with them. And so they will need to be rebuilt at some point. So that's when we had a little bit more freedom to say, well, if they're going to be rebuilt sometime in the future, should we rebuild them exactly where they are, or should we look at maybe there's options for moving them? So this would not, what this is, you can think about it, this is the long-term master plan. Let's call it a 50-year plan, right? So what we're looking at is this vision that you would, I would assume, usually you go about it incrementally. So we have this vision, so this is where we're headed. And then we do what you're saying, which is go after the things, the low-hanging fruit, the things we really need to fix. Keep it in mind that our vision is to be here in 50 years. So that's really what we're at. We're not looking at pushing this on anyone. It's really a long-term vision, and then you decide how you want to implement that vision incrementally. That's usually the way it's done. But the city council would say, let's redo it all at once, and that's their decision. But this gives everyone the flexibility to either do it all at once, or more likely, I'm thinking, it'd be incremental. That makes sense.
Thank you. Yes, it does. Okay, who has the?
My last concern here that I want to share with the group is eliminating a significant percent of the open play fields. That's going to have a tremendous negative impact on a significant portion of our population. And aesthetically, the 25% option looks great. There's a whole lot more design room in that for someone designing a beautiful central park, right, with all the water features. That's a huge reservoir up there too, by the way. But there's a compromise out here somewhere where Kay's residents who want a park that looks more like the 25% can be incorporated in something that doesn't take away so much sports fields. So that's my perspective. I'm not sure if we're at consensus on that, but I would throw that out as a trial balloon if anyone wants to jump on it. But I don't think we're there based upon what the other commissioners have said. That's my guidance, filtered through the city council, of course.
Just a clarification. So in every one of these, the tennis courts have been moved. None of them reflect where the tennis courts are right now. Like I'm looking at maybe in this 50% off.
No, the one in the upper left,
Yeah.
that's the existing tennis court location.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And no, it's exactly where they are. Excellent. And what we heard was people are more comfortable with them staying where they are. That's what we've heard, and that's what we'll pass along to the city council.
Well, I kind of like the idea that you brought up to put the courts out on the outside to.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're there. I mean, if no one's complaining about them now, then we're good.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the thing, and he touched on it in the beginning of his presentation. Is they went out and started taking pictures of from private residents, because I think the view restrictions are going to be key in their redesign, and so that's why I feel like this is great information, and we all look forward to a new design with all the education and it, so yeah. Anyway, I don't want to repeat myself. We all have precious time here, but you guys have come up with some beautiful, wonderful ideas. I think that there's tons of feedback from the community about where to take it from here, and it's revision time. Yeah, thank you. We're good? Gotta add something.
Well, only that, what you were saying, I do feel like this is our opportunity to create something for the future, and to just leave it, I don't think does the future justice. And I know we're all like, oh, but we love our park. I've lived here 20 years too. I love the park too. And so we're afraid of what that future would look like and how it could change. So I think just that's The feedback we're trying to give you is, we love the park as it is, but you do this for a living. You can see it for us, so we need you to help us to get there. And also take into account all that we've told you about what everybody uses and what everybody loves. I also love to go to the park and see random playing because there is so much open space. So it's we're hiring you for a reason. So please continue to do us justice and our money justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and I think that concludes. There are no more comments from us, so hopefully, hopefully at least one council member was watching or will get feedback on what was discussed today. And if there are no more comments, I think we can adjourn.
Your comments were very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the public who's just come out and spent a lot of time giving us their feedback, which is really appreciated. Thank you.